Welcome, reanimated fans, to this week's podcast. I am coming to you from Brooklyn. This is H.A. Conrad, as always, joined by my intrepid co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Hello, HA. Good tidings.
Good tidings. And we have a special guest star cameo, long-term cameo appearance, Kyle Diaz. Hello, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be back. Thanks for having me back on to talk more Last of Us.
And you're Pacific Northwest still, right?
I am currently looking out at a misty Seattle morning.
Nice, nice. So, as Kyle just shared, we are going to be talking about The Last of Us in the next few weeks, season 2, much anticipated event, and so I'm really excited to talk about the first episode with both of you. But before we get to that, we just have a couple of little news tidbits. One of which is actually kind of a big news tidbit, or at least I was excited to see it. But before we get to that, this article from the AV Club that is about women of action, like Resident Evil franchise type things and women-led franchises. And I feel like you put this in there to kind of bait me, Stuart, because of my comments about Resident Evil last week. But
Well, then, yeah, call it a conventional wisdom defying trend or something. But yeah, it is an interesting article about the against all odds success of the Resident Evil film franchise with Mia Jovovich. God, I do that every single time. So it's a fascinating read. I don't know if you guys both got to read the whole thing. It's kind of long.
I read it, but I also am kind of like, they're talking about this franchise, but my go-to when I think about female-led franchises or like film franchises and things like that are Alien, Terminator, all the things that they mention here to me that are much more, that I enjoy much more than Resident Evil.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just being mean, but
Well, that where they have Resident Evil standing apart from those is in how many installments it had. I don't know that that's necessarily like, oh, quantity over quality is what you're going for, or just the fact
yeah.
that people are willing to put up $45 million each time. But then it's brought in like over $1 billion over the course of the franchise and
Well,
spawning more remakes too.
and I think part of this is also just because of the popularity of the game and the gaming piece of it, because it's just got this massive fan base, and they've been able to basically take that and turn that into like just like a lot of things that are like, if you look at just the general interest in gaming versus films, like this is kind of the perfect storm of everybody can get on board with that. But and also, sorry, they also mentioned Underworld in this, and those are also, those are kind of my, I don't want to be like, I don't know, Underworld are to me are like kind of like rainy day junk food kind of movies. But anyway, but Kyle, thoughts on any of this?
Well, I was going to ask, I can't remember on the pod if you guys have covered much Resident Evil, that whole universe. My really only touch point for it is Resident Evil 4, which was a pretty good video game that I remember playing back on a Wii. Although I think it's kind of, that game in particular has kind of become like a horror Skyrim where it's like on every single console that exists on the planet. But I have never actually seen a Resident Evil film. And the vibe of them always looked a lot different than the one game that I'd played. So it's really just not a franchise I have a lot of uh, familiarity with. And then the one installment and I do have familiarity with, you don't play as a woman, you play as a man. So it kind of goes against the point of the news article.
Yeah, we have covered a few of the Resident Evil films,
Like
but
about half, maybe,
yeah.
because there's like maybe three or four of the Mia movies that we haven't covered, but we've covered every subsequent one and the short-lived Netflix show, which we actually really liked.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just a ton of that content. I mean, I'm looking at the units sold for these games, and it's like 9 million, 9 million, 10 million, 14 million. There's these games sold a ton.
Yeah. Like,
So that does represent that built-in audience. I don't know how movie business works, how many people they have to get to the theater or whatever to make these things turn around. But $1.2 billion over the 6 movies, that is a hard number to turn your nose up at.
oh gosh, no. And I just think that this just shows what power that gaming audience and that the fandom basically can play in these kinds of things. And maybe I mean, it's actually interesting. I guess we have seen quite a lot of video game based things, including what we're talking about today.
Indeed.
So I think that that's just going to be a continued theme, and it
Oh, and
makes
now that Minecraft is doing well, I keep seeing
yeah,
that headline like,
Oh
"Oh, get
man,
ready for more video game movies."
yeah.
Roblox is coming next.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
gosh. But in any case, it is an interesting article, so I do recommend people check it out on the AV Club. And then in very exciting news, there's like a full trailer for 28 Years Later with additional footage and a different, like additional context, versus the one that came out, was it 2 months ago now, Stuart? No, it
Yeah,
was,
it was a bit ago.
um, and I don't know. I now have slightly more mixed feelings about this movie. I don't know. What is your first take on it, Stuart? And
It's hard to live up to that first teaser trailer, which was kind of like a masterpiece, in my opinion. So yeah, I was a little trepidatious going into it too. I'm still extremely excited. I feel like you can see the chapters or the big chunks of this story. There's the modern warfare one. There's the Ray Fiennes doing whatever the hell he's doing. I'm not sure. There's still a giant zombie in the mix somewhere. And then there's the Aaron Taylor Johnson and the kid out there and bringing trouble home, it looks like. So I feel like we've got a few different main chunks of this movie. I think it's shaping up to be still extremely entertaining. I wish they would stop using the goddamn poem in their
I
trailers.
know, agree. I think that I was hoping that they would just move away from that,
I
which
mean, they got so much press about that. Like, oh, all these people are having PTSD from that poem we play in our trailer. This is great. Let's keep going with it.
I don't know. Did you watch it, Kyle? What do you think?
You know, I did watch it. I am just excited to have the OG combination of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland back. Because they were the creative team, the director and writer behind the first 28 Days Later, and then they turned it over to some other folks for 28 Weeks Later to both write and direct. And that film, despite having one of the greatest opening scenes of all time, outside of that, I don't really remember much of the rest of the film. Um, but Alex Garland has gone on to be a pretty successful movie director in his own right. And so I feel like it would have been really easy for him to just be like, I'm too busy. I moved on to other things. I'm making, Annihilation and all the, Ex Machina and all these other movies. But I'm keeping the faith. The trailer I thought was like perfectly passable, but not thrilling. But I'm just keeping the faith because I have a lot of trust in those two creative forces behind the project.
I have faith in it, but this is the thing that's dangerous about the even just kind of going down this path is that after and maybe this is why they didn't want to get involved with 28 weeks later. But the way that 28 days later ended was basically like, okay, these aren't actually zombies, like they're dying off and thus the virus is dying off. And so um and they have a few ways around that in 28 weeks later. But for this, it's now something entirely different. I think we're seeing a little bit of, well, not a little, but like implications that the rage viruses may be evolving, and then there's these like cults that are sort of like around it, and it's giving me a little bit of like I don't know, like jumping the shark off the rails vibes from some of our favorite zombie franchises like Walking Dead. So I mean, I guess just what I gleaned from the trailer is that these people are on this basically cut off island or cut off like location, and the mainland still has infected, and there's all sorts of things like that going on. And it could be really good, and I do have faith in these two, but it has me a little more worried than I was before. Especially with the mad preacher bit at the end. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a bit of a homage to the first movie with
yeah,
yeah, maybe that's the same preacher. Although it didn't look like London, but he was also inside a church.
yeah. So
I
anyway,
will echo or just jump on that bandwagon that you mentioned, Kyle. The Alex Garland, I'm excited about him, although he doesn't have any. I don't know that maybe he'll direct one of these three movies. Maybe that could be cool. But Civil War, I really enjoyed. Not a lot of people, I don't know how many people enjoyed that, but I really enjoyed that. And he's got a movie in theaters right now called Warfare that is getting good reviews and looks incredible. I really want to see that. So I kind of hope he gets a chance to get into the director's chair too and do some of this like authentic, tactical sort of stuff that he seems to be enjoying. And obviously, he's a great writer.
I do think it's funny that film franchises struggle a lot with the age of people, so they can't take these big time jumps
Hmm.
because the actors don't age, appropriately. You see it even here in The Last of Us, where it's filmed only a year or two after the first one, so they have to like whiten Pedro's hair a little bit and stuff to, make it seem like 5 years has passed. And 28 years later is actually almost 28 years after the original film
I
came out.
know.
But there's not going to be any continuity in the characters at all because no
Jim
one
might show
survived
up.
that long. So
We
it's
think
just, it's
we
too
think
bad.
Jim.
They're the one franchise that could have pulled it off and they didn't leave themselves any characters to bring back, except maybe the preacher.
Well,
And
we think
Jim,
maybe Jim is going to show up.
Oh,
That's
he
sort
is.
of
Okay.
the rumor, but it's so either they're keeping it super quiet, or Killian Murphy's like, I'll show up and then get killed, or there's going to be something like that. But we don't know. I think we have to see what's going to happen there. But we're hopeful that Jim may show up. So
Everyone thought he was the zombie, but then it turns out it's just a real skinny zombie, and he's
yeah.
just a real skinny dude. So.
yeah, that was a thing, a moment. Um, so I think that anything else to talk about with the trailer other than we're all still pumped for what is this, June? When's this thing coming out?
Yep, it's in June.
June 20th.
We're gonna have a lot to talk about in June because also Murderbot Diaries comes out then too. It'll just be
Yay.
amazing. Anyway, but on to the main event.
Indeed. Here we go. So this is episode one entitled Future Days of season two of The Last of Us. This one was written and directed by Craig Mazin, showrunner, co-showrunner with Neil Druckmann. Um, and so let's do a quick video game watch here. I have played the second game now twice. I think Kyle, when I talked to you last week, you had said you maybe started it but never finished.
Yeah, I actually booted it up to see where I got to, and I got 48 minutes in. And I can tell you exactly why. It's because when the first game came out, I was 25. My girlfriend was going to a graduate school in another city, and I was living with my dog. And so I had a lot of time to play video games. When the second game came out, I was 33. I had a 2-year-old, and we were about to have another baby. And so
Slacker.
it arrived at this precise moment when I just was not able to play any video games at all. And so, yeah, I bought it, downloaded it, started it. I think I got, there's like a section in the beginning where you wander through Jackson and you have a snowball fight and the rest of that stuff. And then I got to basically where you actually have a zombie encounter and then uh, turned it off and never managed to pick it back up again. So, so I have very little context for this
Okay.
game.
And
And
Agent
as
Conrad.
I have never played it. I played probably yeah, no, I have not played this. We all know that I cannot play video games because I will get too addicted to them and then never leave my house. So
I
that's
think that's not that you can't play video games. That's that
no, I choose
maybe
not
you'd be
to.
great at it, you know.
I'd probably be great at it, but I know myself, and I had to take Tetris off my phone because I was too addicted to it. So
It's good to
yeah.
know
Cautionary tale.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, video game watch. I will endeavor not to unless it is one of those scenes. Constantly bring it up, like I did in the first season. But here we go.
Well,
It-
Stuart, I guess I'll ask you just based on the first episode of season one was essentially like ripped from the game.
yeah,
And you and I talked a lot about that because section of the game made such a strong impact on us. Just kind of baseline season two, is this stuff ripped from the game or are we departing, more dramatically now that the show has kind of found its voice and its feet and stuff like that?
episode one here that we're talking about, which is the only one I've seen. There are sequences and scenes that are ripped from the game. There is a general plot structure that is from the game that they have. I mean, the pilot was also not 100% shot for shot, but they just had those certain sequences, like this flight from their house
Yeah.
in the car, that were you played through that, and so yeah, we've got some scenes that are like that. Some of the more narrative scenes.
Okay. Okay. So it's it's definitely still heavily inspired by, but not a copycat.
No, but I would say it's similarly to how they did last season. And it'll be really hard to make this call until after all the episodes are out and see how they've approached it. I mean, we haven't had, we when you have the Jim and Frank, is that what his name was? Jim? Um, Frank and somebody.
Yeah, the Ron Swanson
The
episode.
Ron Swanson episode was obviously 100%, new, and I
Hmm.
think we'll probably almost certainly get some of that too. Um, But yeah, so like, and actually, the whole thing starts with a scene that is completely not from the game, but helps. I think that like you can you can hear Neil and Craig talking about why they would want to change the intro to the season rather than as opposed to how the game starts. It starts with a handful of people, is it six, looking at many graves, dozens of graves, in the giraffe-infested park of, is this Salt Lake City? I'm trying to
Yep.
remember what,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's Salt Lake City. Yep.
Um, and I don't know, so HA, I'd be interested to hear from you how did you feel about this scene?
Well, I liked that it in some ways it starts out and we basically are setting the table for what the conflict is going to be or what part of the conflict is going to be. And I think that, we saw Ellie and Joel in the at the end of last season basically getting away, escaping. Um, he rescued her from after finding out that to do the cure they'd have to kill Ellie, and he absolutely lies to her, and they do that in the sort of lead up trailer into this. So it's, that the basis of this season, there's several conflicts, but there's one between Joel and Ellie, but then there's also going to be one for the people that know that she is the cure, know that to get that they're going to have to kill her. But also they absolutely, like, Joel took out a lot of people in this particular like ending to rescue Ellie. And I liked that it showed that these people have these relationships, that they're grieving, and that that's going to be the driver. It feels like it's more grieving and somewhat revenge, because they start talking about how they're going to go after him, or one person in particular does. I don't know if you recognized her. She was in Booksmart. Um, did you either of you see that?
No, I didn't recognize the actress.
No, I mean,
Um,
I knew who she was because I've been wondering who they were going to cast this person. I guess we don't know. Well, we do her name. She was called Abby in this scene, and
yep.
Abby is the main antagonist for the second game. Also, the protagonist because you get to play as her.
Oh, you do. Oh,
Yeah.
that's kind of
So
cool.
her name's Caitlin Deaver.
Caitlin Deaver.
This young
Yep.
woman, and I've talked about this before on the podcast with you, HA, but Abby, Caitlin Deaver's character is swole in the game.
Yeah.
She's huge.
So they
She's a built lady.
so they have departed from that here.
Yeah, and Caitlin Deaver's got on record saying, for this version of the story, that's not important. And fine, okay. I guess it was never that important, other than the fact that Abby was like lifting steel beams and stuff in the video game. Kind of the same way that Joel sometimes seemed to have superhuman strength and power. So we'll see how they continue to develop her. I don't think any of the other characters in this scene are named, but the guy with the beard who kind of holds her hand at one point, we can assume is Owen, and is named as Owen in the synopsis, at least on Wikipedia, even though I don't feel like anybody else's names were thrown around in that scene.
Yeah, we didn't get names. So they set that up, and basically Abby is like, "Hey, I need to get him," and then they all agree that they're gonna go and get him, and there's a lot of support. And so I do like how they build the different like groups of people and their stories in this episode. And so it then immediately goes to the other community that Joel and Ellie are living in.
But
Um,
before we leave behind those folks at the beginning, I just have to. This scene rubbed me just a little bit wrong, and I think the reason why is because I feel like it was like a pickup. I think they realized that they didn't have a good opening for the show, and so they went back and shot this thing really quickly because it's just kind of the actors just standing there. They're not, the graves are dug. There's no practical effects of like the bodies or anything. They're on a green screen. And something about it just felt very, very awkward to me. And
Hmm.
so I'm hoping that they find some better ways to build up these folks. But so far, this did not seem like, oh, these guys are going to be, these very, very scary, you know, threats for Joel and Ellie to face this season. And so I kind of saw the little like after the episode thing with Craig Mazin where he was talking about why they put this in here and they wanted to drive home that they were people that, that Joel had, hurt with his actions, with his decisions at the end of last season. But something about the mechanics of how it was shot and acted and blocked and all that kind of stuff just really felt kind of more low budget and slapdash than this show usually does. So I'm kind of, you know, a little uneasy about Abby as a villain based on this little intro that we got here. Also, they all looked like Abercrombie models. They were all just wearing like these polo shirts and they were all way too clean. Um,
Well, they're
but
always too clean. Everybody's too clean, but
Yeah.
I didn't get that. I hear what you're saying, but I actually thought it hit it home really well that how many people he had killed just by looking at the graves, and I thought that's kind of what they were trying to hit home.
Yeah. That's a
And I
nice way of
don't
showing, not telling,
right,
explicitly.
and like because one of the things which we'll talk about, which I have a couple of nits later, but just filling in context in kind of a forced way is sometimes, this is where they didn't do that. And I don't know, like maybe we'll see how it goes as the story goes along. I didn't get the sense that they were building up this group as a big bad, but basically showing how these different communities could think that they're doing the right thing and just have very different points of view about it. And that was, the Fireflies have a very specific mission, and that had been the case in the last season. So I didn't feel like that piece, and I didn't feel it was as slapdash, but I did feel like a little bit of the dialogue was slightly stilted, but not um more so in the beginning of it, but I felt like the scene warmed up. But
I hope you guys are right, and I'm just being cranky or just settling into the show. I also we talked about this last season where the first two or three episodes had these incredible flashback scenes, and they just like opened the show with a bang. Like remember the one from the pilot of last season with the guy talking about the fungus on TV or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
And so, I was hoping that we were going to get like shot out of a cannon, and I didn't feel that way so much at the beginning of this season. But they're trying to tell a different kind of story here. So,
they are, and I kind of was glad that they didn't do that because I feel like I want to see that they're going to differentiate the season from the first one.
yeah.
And I do think they are doing that even in what's happening in this first episode. So anyway, let's continue.
Well, I just want to say one more thing
Go
before we
ahead.
get
Go
off the
ahead.
first 5 minutes of the episode. We'll spend 20 minutes on it. And that is that. So, video game watch, hashtag video game player. The final scene of this episode is kind of, if I recall correctly, the beginning of the game. The way the game opens is with Abby and crew just arriving in the snow and having a conversation about their relationships, like completely non-big bad feeling. And honestly, the game goes kind of to great lengths to not make you feel like Abby's ever a big bad. It's just that she has a perspective that is like diametrically opposed to who we followed around last in the last game. And so I feel like it'll be interesting to see how they continue to develop that. Nobody's evil. Everybody is just dealing in their world, and then there's the clickers as like a layer of complication, which is one of those beautiful things that zombie genres does so often.
Yeah, you can have the creatures be the big bad.
So okay, if you guys are good, we can move forward.
Yeah, thanks for indulging me.
Um, so I think, oh, also one other thing that's important to point out is the Fireflies are done. Like that, they do say that during that scene. Are we gonna go find the Fireflies? The Fireflies they're all here. Like
Hmm.
this is it,
They're
is one
dead.
of the things that they say. So this group, when they say we're gonna go to Seattle and hook up with this guy named Isaac, that's like they're leaving. The Fireflies, as far as they're concerned, are over. They are
Yep.
joining a new faction. That's their plan. And so that was 5 years ago. We jump forward 5 years after the credits, I think. I'm not, yeah, I think. And Ellie's getting her ass kicked by a big guy. He's
Yep.
a big dude. I'm hoping I don't recognize his character. I'm hoping that we get to see, I don't know, why I'm saying this, but I'm hoping he comes back. I don't know. I feel like big people like that need more screen time. I
More
don't know.
representation for big
But yeah,
burly dudes.
we know as a savvy TV audience that we know that she's not actually in danger, but she's bleeding and she
Mhm.
seems like she's getting her ass kicked a little bit. But there's some good jujitsu or whatever it is that's going on here. I mean, it's a fairly basic scene, but it introduces Jesse, who's an important character. So, any thoughts about the ass kicking scene?
No, I mean it just again it sh sets up Ellie in a way so we kind of can see where she is now that there's been this time lapse. She is a very different compared to where we saw her at the beginning of the first season. She is, a functioning piece of this particular community. And the one thing that you actually kind of see is how like Joel she kind of is because she's very stubborn and she's mad because they pulled their punch and she was like, don't do that. And they already set up a bit of the tension and conflict between her and Joel because he says something like, "Oh, well, Joel will get mad" or something like that, and she gets
Hmm.
really mad. So there's some teenage angsty things going on here, but she's definitely her own person, and so I kind of and I liked actually seeing them train and doing the things that they need to do to protect the community, and that they're actively showing that. So I thought that was kind of cool. How about you, Kyle?
Yeah, like it was a fun scene. I feel like over the course of the episode, Ellie's kind of oh, rebellious. Yeah, I don't take any shit and I do what I want. Attitude is gonna start to grate a little bit, but here in this scene, it works really well. And her, don't do that. And her comments about pulling the punches are a nice way to remind ourselves about the kind of person she is.
And I would say it's HA, your comment that she's a functional part of this community. I would say she's dysfunctional as hell in this community.
Oh, she's dysfunctional, but she's actually trying to like actively participate versus
Yeah.
run away from it,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
it's interesting. This episode kind of shows you the elements where she's like engrossed in her social life, but there's at least one scene. There's a couple scenes of her like taking care of logistical stuff, which we'll get to. But like cleaning her gun is one of the earlier scenes in the episode. I think it's before she goes out on patrol. And she's focused on this lifestyle in a way that seems quite intense, but she's also, you know, a young 20 year old in a zombie apocalypse, post-apocalyptic society. So it's kind of interesting to see how they're painting her as a semi-adult here.
Right. But she's not sitting in a classroom protected away, and she's not, she's actually part of that. And there's realities that relate to this existence that are definitely different than they were when she was living in Boston.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the contrast that I was talking about.
Yeah. So, and one other thing about this final thought about this scene is we meet young Mazzino, I believe is the actor's name, who's playing Jesse.
Mm.
And my only beef here is that I wish he had a mullet
Oh
because
yeah, he really needs the mullet.
yeah,
Mm.
the mullet kind of makes the character a little bit. I'm obviously only about the superficial details of characters, but I think he's coming across very Jesse so far, so I'm liking it. And then we kind of cut. Well, Ellie walks out into Jackson. There's that I don't know what to call the kind of shot where we go out into the street. She's kind of stomping around. She has this very characteristic angry walk, I feel like. And
Mhm.
Hmm.
then we kind of is that an establishing shot? I don't know, but we get that like overview
You get
street
like
shot.
like a crane
Yeah,
up basically
Yeah.
to reveal the geography of the town.
Yeah, and it feels bigger.
does.
It feels bigger than in the video game, I would say. Jackson feels like uh I don't know, a few thousand people. It's a big town, it feels like.
Well, it feels bigger than in the last season too.
It
Yeah, it
might. I mean,
does.
although I feel like they do have some continuity with where they shot it, but yeah, they've developed it more. I think last season it was filmed in like a parking lot or something, and now it's
So,
more. Um,
Later they'll show the map and there's like a wall in that kind of runs through the middle of the town. So I
that's
wonder if
true.
some of the buildings that you can see in that establishing shot are actually outside of the settlement proper
Yeah,
because it did look really, really large.
could be. We get an important shot here too, although it's weirdly I don't know if it's looped or what. You hear Dina's voice in this scene with the pipe where they break open the clay pipe and then there's full of roots. It's a guy who's doing that work, but then you hear Dina's voice go, "Oh, that's weird," or "That's not going to work out," or whatever it was.
I mean, when they first broke it open, I thought, oh, those roots look just like the fungus.
Yeah, so did I.
And so it's a nice little continuity with the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another, this transitions directly into another interesting scene where Dina comes to visit Joel. He's working on stuff. The way we don't see her come in, but he's like, "Hey, kiddo, come on in." You're like, "Oh, who's, he's talking to Ellie or he's talking to," but no, this is just this new character, Dina, who is full of what, vim and vigor.
All right, I got a rant. And
Bring
this
it.
is this is the only time I'll do this rant this season, I promise. After this, I will suspend my disbelief. There is just simply no way you can run an electric grid completely cut off from the rest of society like this. In this scene, Joel is repairing a circuit breaker, and there's like 17 things wrong with this. First of all, he's like, the first thing you do is you make sure it doesn't have any electricity. He's touching it with the voltage tester. The panel is off the wall and the breaker is out of the panel. Like that's something you do when you're changing a light fixture. Like the electricity is not going to leap from the wall into the circuit breaker and shock him. But he's also saying like, oh, the spring is just bad. Where is he getting that specific spring that is like the exact right tension to trip the breaker at the right time? That's not how we replace breakers these days. We just pull the whole thing and put a whole new one in. Like there is such an infrastructure of components, maintenance, like inputs. Like if you're generating power, like it has to have, if it's like a natural gas plant, it needs natural gas coming into it or coal or whatever. There, they've made the decision several times throughout this show to show people who've been able to set up off the grid living with essentially all the conveniences of modern life. They did it with the Nick Offerman episode last season. They did it with the quarantine zone, which I can kind of buy because there was kind of a quasi-governmental military infrastructure there. But there is just no way that these 2,000 people or whatever in Jackson would be able to keep a functioning electric grid up. And I would have preferred that they just, go with like a Deadwood style, these people are living by oil lamps and candlelight kind of thing. I felt like they were really inviting my rant with having Joel doing that specific task in that moment because it is just it is so impossible to imagine that you could keep specifically the electrical grid running in a situation like
Well,
this.
Kyle, I feel like this scene specifically was coming for you because the guy has two space heaters plugged in this room too. Like, show me the show me the circuit breaker that could support that,
I guess hydro, like if they had a dam, like a
which they do.
hydroelectric dam that they had access to, that's the thing that could generate the most power on its own in Wyoming. By the way, you're not, lining up a bunch of solar panels in wintertime in Wyoming to power this down. But I'm just like, where is this electricity coming from? It's not possible. It is not possible to generate electricity like this completely absent from all other civilization. Even the gas would be bad after this long. So you couldn't even run a generator. It is just I don't understand why they keep showing all these places that have all the conveniences of home. I feel like it's actually more interesting if they're having to learn to live a comfortable life, like a 17th century settler would or something like that. Anyway, rant over. I will suspend my disbelief for the rest of the
Well,
time,
I
but
felt like they were clearly doing this scene to set up something for later. So that's, all that sort of walking through that kind of thing. I felt like we're going to see something about this later on.
In
maybe
season
so.
one, the season one they did not did they talk about the dam and the hydro power that they're getting from there at all or no? I remember we talked about it in our review because it is part of the game. It's like an outpost of Jackson.
Oh, there's like a dam that they're using for this.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that might not, maybe that doesn't exist in this part of the universe. So we'll see. I think that they could develop more on this for sure.
All right.
But
Well,
so the interpersonal stuff that's going on in the scene, any thoughts on how Dina is talking to Joel, how he is relating to her?
I liked it. I thought it felt natural. I thought that, we see for Joel and Nit's aside about the grid Kyle. Um, I did think that his interactions with like he was a contractor before this whole thing happened, and it feels like he's now like he's using this knowledge to help build the community. It feels like he always has this good rapport, and you can as their conversation gets into it, his sadness and his like his emotions about the distance with Ellie, which they intimate in this particular dialogue, um this interaction, it's he looks like he's hurt and in pain and struggling, and but he's still doing kind of like the day-to-day things to keep this community going. He hasn't completely shut himself off, and even is getting therapy, though he's a little bit embarrassed about that. So there's a different place that this character is than he was in the first one, where he's still dealing, and it's not that he's not probably, I'm sure he'll always be dealing with that, but the death of his child um from the first season. And you know we know that there's going to be tension between him and Ellie because of the lie he told at the end of the first season. So that's definitely a part of the conflict. But these are also teenagers we're talking about, and so there's that angsty thing going on. But I also want to talk about how beautiful the scene is. The lighting is gorgeous. The color, the tone of it is beautiful. But he's not he's still in like I don't want to say a tormented space, but I guess Joel is always kind of a bit of a tormented character, right? What do you think, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that bringing up what he's doing and how he fits into this community is also important. He does. I don't think I was picking up on how damaged he was, other than he's clearly trying to figure out why he and Ellie aren't getting along. He's like, "What did I do?" Like the most ridiculously denial question I've ever heard come out of a murderer's mouth. Sorry, I know I'm still on the murderer tip, guys. Season one flashback. Think about what he was doing for a career in season one when we met him in the zone. It was like he's a smuggler and a black market guy. He could get you anything, right? He could get pills for the Fedra guys, and he could move goods or people wherever you needed them moved. But he did have that history as a contractor, and now here he is. He's a foreman. He's working with his hands. It feels like a healthier place for him at the beginning of this season, even if he is having these troubles with Ellie, which he writes off as it's just an age thing. It's just a 19-year. They bring this point up a few times where he's just like, look, this is just what it's like between a parent and his kid when they're a certain age.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that's really contributing to he and Ellie's issues this season is the fact that Joel is a highly capable person. Yeah, he's a highly capable zombie killer, he's a highly capable smuggler, and he's a highly capable like contractor and city planner, basically. And so he has become, and you see this even more so. I think it's in a subsequent scene when he's talking to the mayor of the leader of the community. I forget what her name is. Um, but he's basically become a really, really important integral part of this community in a way that she's still struggling to figure out how she fits in and where she can be valuable in that way. So
Yeah.
you start to see that here, and then you see it a little bit more later in the episode.
Yeah, we've had a couple mentions of this thing happening tonight too. Uh, so anyway, that's just like setting more dressing. We go to a shooting practice scene. We cut out to our second scene with Ellie. She's out with Tommy doing shooting practice on the side of a mountain, and they're our first shot of some zombies. We see a clicker, we see another one, but they're way off in the distance, and this is just target practice. This is a scene from the game. You and Ellie and Tommy walking out and doing some scoped rifle sniping of zombies and talking about relationships with between Ellie and how things are tense or not great between Ellie and Joel, and Tommy's trying to kind of be the mediator. But otherwise, anything else to take away from the sniper scene for you guys?
No, mainly just the interactions between her and Tommy. It's nice to see that she's developed a relationship with him. And in some ways, it seems like a more comfortable relationship with him than she has with Joel right now. But Tommy is still Joel's brother, and he knows his brother very well. And they're just sort of dancing around, not even dancing around, but like, they talk about her not going on patrol and they have this interaction. And she essentially says to him, well, if you like, because he's just like, you're just like him. And, she's like, well, then you're not going to win the fight. And he ultimately gives in. And I thought that was kind of a nice little bit of dialogue that even though Ellie and Joel are maybe at odds at the moment, part of it's because they're so much alike. So I thought and it's a very like, familiar parent-child. Even though these two are not related by blood, they do have that dynamic. So I kind of liked that. What about you, Kyle?
I just think they're so cavalier about the zombies. Like that's all I could think the whole episode was just like they're just lying on their bellies like staring into the distance. They're not looking at their periphery. No one's watching to the sides. So I know we're a little early for a surprise attack that's going to come later in the episode, but I had a lot of trouble focusing on what they were doing. I was just so worried about, somebody wandering in from the side and mauling them. So
Well, I kind of thought that the reason for that is that that's kind of where they are in their headspace, and they have become cavalier, and I think that's part of the point.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
that's probably true.
they've become a little bit too comfortable in terms of this world that they are like, oh, I know exactly how this is going to go, and forgetting that things evolve. And I think that that's going to be explored a little bit. I'm assuming in the next episode a bit. So,
Yeah. You
and
could
it
s-
was
you
at the end of this one too, right? So,
you could say that consequences and Ellie are two things that need to like they're setting that up.
yep.
She's yeah.
Yep.
Um, I will also make a shout out to Tommy's hair. The little ponytail is exactly, I feel like exactly what his hair looks like in the game. So I'm still just wondering why they couldn't come up with a mullet plan for Jesse. But okay, well, it's fine. Tiny ponytail, check.
Maybe he'll grow out a mullet at the end of the season.
You know, you
So,
could. There is time, I think, in the storyline for a mullet to be grown.
You have to avoid spoiling things, Stuart, about the fate of this particular character.
mm.
Does he have time?
He has as much time as that lady from Fringe had. Remember when I was all excited to see her?
Yep.
Oh
You
yeah,
guys were
Anna
like,
Core.
ha ha.
Same thing. I was hoping that they would go against what the game did, but oh well.
Well,
Um,
exactly. I mean, of some of the reviews that I've seen, and I haven't read them, but beyond headlines, it was like they're gonna mess with the whole plot and gonna break your heart. So I don't even know. Like, all bets are off, or maybe they just were
well,
paid to write that headline.
we should also flag that one of the things that they talk about in this little interaction between them, and part of what gets Tommy kind of worked up is that she talks about how she got bitten and survived, how she's immune,
Yeah.
and that they should let her go on these runs because of that. And he gets really like, no, you can't talk about that. Somebody's going to hear you. And so I feel like that's something that they flagged deliberately, and I was a little annoyed in the same way that I like Kyle maybe was with the first scene where it felt a little forced and a little like I don't think we need to like I don't even know that that was totally necessary, but because we all kind of know that, but I guess if you're new to the show, you may need to know that already. But anyway,
It's helpful
small nit,
to it's helpful to reiterate that it's not something that they can talk about openly.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And that's mostly Tommy's horror that she's screaming about it on top of a mountain.
Well, it's not something they can talk about openly, and also Ellie is starting to chafe at having to keep her superpower
Mm.
hidden, basically. That I think she would like to be able to talk about it because it's something that she thinks makes her cool and badass, but she can't.
That's true. Ellie and being cool and badass, very much the same animal. We switch scenes to Joel and Maria in like their, I don't know, city council office maybe. Um, she's telling him they need to build more. There's also been a scene of a wagon full of people being brought inside. And she's like, we need more housing, we need more places for these refugees. He's like, why don't we stop bringing refugees here? Like, come on.
She calls him out on it, but I was like, Jesus, dude, like you were the refugee. Like,
Yep.
not that long ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you recognize the actor in the scene.
Rutina Wesley.
Yes, 'cause she was in True Blood.
Yeah, she was in
Um,
last season. We have
no, I
gushed
know, I
about
know.
her.
But I always excited to see her again and have
Yeah.
a and I was excited to see her more in this because she takes a role in like the council later. And I liked how she's basically calling Joel out for these things and not in like a mean way, but just in kind of a really guy, like, come on. Like we have to figure out a way. I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but we have to bring in these survivors because what else are we gonna do? And so I did like their interaction and it felt natural, but also not necessarily like it wasn't negative. It's just people trying to work out a way to survive in a situation that's difficult with few resources. So
Yeah.
I also like the shorthand between Joel and his brother
The big
about
dial.
yes, the big dial. That was
Yeah,
Tommy
I like that
lies to
joke.
Joel in this scene too. He straight up lies to him about where he just was and what he was doing. Not where he was, but
who
with
he was
whom,
with.
with whom, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
yeah.
Which is telling. I mean, I think
And
it's just part of.
Joel clocks it, I think.
You think so?
Yep. Oh
I
yeah,
think so.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like it's just part of Tommy trying to mediate and help, but not be too obvious. But if he's not good at lying to his brother, then it's gonna be obvious, I guess. Uh, so then he has to Joel gets up and leaves this interaction with that final like you're a refugee too to go to his therapy appointment, which is with Catherine O'Hara, the great Catherine O'Hara, which goes kind of hilariously sideways very quickly. I don't know how much therapy you guys have had, but I don't know that it goes like that very often.
I have to say, uh, I had forgotten that Catherine O'Hara could actually talk like a normal human being after watching her on Schitt's Creek for so many years.
I mean,
And
I was
so,
hearing some Moira here too, but
but
not too
like
much.
when she started speaking, I was like, oh my God, that's what she really sounds like, was all I could think for about 30 seconds. She is unbelievably good in this scene.
Yes, she is. This is
Like,
a great scene.
and she's just so this in the hands of a lesser actor, this the interiority of what she's going through and how she's talking through her emotions could be so uh, forced, and it is just absolutely captivating. So I thought this was like a master class. Like people are going to be performing this monologue in acting classes for the next 40 years, kind of thing. I thought it was really, really, really great scene.
I thought it was a great scene for that reason. I also thought it was a great a great scene between her and Joel and watching what was happening between them. And the reveals in this were so good because you don't fully understand where it's going. And then when it hits you with like the big reveal, um, I thought that that was one of the most powerful, like it's such a powerful scene between them. And I can't wait to see them again later and I want to see even more of her. So,
Just
um
just to double check myself, we did not meet Eugene last season, did we?
No, no, we did
Okay,
not.
so this is
no,
this is an event that happened off screen that we don't that we're not privy to yet.
right.
Okay, just
Yeah.
wanted to
I'm
like
wondering if we're
completely make
going to
sure.
see a flashback or something like
I
that,
mean,
but
it's Joey Pants, so I assume we have to. He's been cast.
Oh, it's Pantaleano.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's yeah. You don't get him for like a half a scene or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, maybe he'll be in a photo or something. Because Eugene does not show up in the game. He's talked about a fair amount in a few scenes, but never shown. And his wife is never mentioned. So that's why Catherine O'Hara, new character as Gail, the therapist. Um, and I feel like Pedro Pascal, we haven't really talked about him much yet because we're all big fans. Um, and and Joel Miller is so like understated in a way
Mhm.
that he's just kind of reacting to Gail's rant. But I like the quiet energy that he's kind of got there, the way he doesn't really react in big ways in this scene, despite what's being put in his face. And we don't know any of the context of what happened, but he's certainly being accused of doing something in a way that was hurtful to Gail. and also
Well, no,
doing the doing a thing
well,
that she's like, look, I know you didn't have a choice. You had to kill Eugene. You had to kill my husband, but the way you did it is what she eventually says to him was what was bad, and he kind of just sits and takes it. And one like what I wanted to say about Pedro Pascal is Joel Miller, Din Djarin, and Reed Richards, this guy right now. Like all like because Star Wars Celebration is going on right now, and so there's announcements about the new Mandalorian movie that's coming out in 2 years. He's got the Fantastic Four coming out, and he's got this show on the air right now. And it I mean, I don't know if he can go much higher.
oh
No,
yeah, no,
this is
this
a
is
total
peak.
moment for him.
Yep, this is peak. And also, I hope he doesn't burn himself out because it feels like a lot to be going on for one person. So this is a huge, huge year for him, and I think I'm glad to see him in everything. I actually really liked the fact that he doesn't say a ton in this scene, and as Joel, his reactions are he does have reactions, but they're quite subtle, and I think that he plays it exactly right. And to Kyle's point, you could have gone into this scene and had a lot of things feel forced or over the top. And in this, he's just there. What is he going to say? And also, when she's calling him out on things, he he eventually says one thing, but she knows he's been lying to her and leaving something out. And that's, in fact, I think that's part of why she reveals that the resentment she's holding towards him because she's been leaving something out. And so it's to essentially get him to confess about what's actually going on with him and Ellie. And so I can't wait to see that this particular relationship being explored more. But his little ending, now he spits out, I saved her life, like, this little kind of self-righteous thing. And it's like he knows exactly what's going on with Ellie, but he can't actually reveal it. And he can't reveal the secret because that's part of this too, I think. So
That
anyway.
tiny choked nod he makes when she's like, "Did you do something to her?" And he
mm,
just kind of makes that tiny little nod, looking so beat up.
Yep, it's good. It's good. So I really love this. And again, the lighting, the set, like just even the little detail where he walks in and he sees like the men's boots next to her shoes in there, and you don't even know anything yet when you see that, and later you find out that Eugene is dead and those have not moved. That's like a really just those little details I think are just incredible in this.
Any final thoughts on therapy? Was this good therapy? Is that what you're saying, AJ?
I don't know if it's good therapy or not. There's definitely some problems in this dynamic between them, but I think it helps build the story a little bit. Um,
I
and
mean,
some might say too much, but like I think it's a cool little addition to this.
I think effective therapy in this world might be as unbelievable as in a running electrical grid in this world. Just so I think you get the best that you can possibly hope for.
I feel like Ellie's getting good therapy at the beginning of the episode, just like a good
Yeah.
ass kicking.
Oh, I thought you meant shooting the zombies in the head from far away.
That too, catharsis, not to be under emphasized. Okay, so then it's patrol day or patrol. I guess it's the same day. Um, and Dina shows up at Ellie's house or garage and gets her dress. And we've got some introduction to the tension that is between them as Dina gets a little close. And then they go out on patrol looking like Curtis and Viper. And Jesse kind of has to talk to them about taking things more seriously. So these two characters are constantly sort of Ellie was taken off patrol because she was being too reckless before. They approach everything through this lens of like sarcasm and irreverence. And yeah, this is just more of this theme that I feel like the it'll come home to roost for sure. But then they eventually go out and go on patrol with Kat and two other unnamed, although one of them does get to speak, patrol people, and they're doing the Alpine run. Just up until the grocery store, do we have any thoughts about how this goes?
Just that if you're going to send these two rebellious, wild, crazy people out, I feel like they paired them with the most milquetoast possible captain on the
Agree.
planet. I'm like, this, you cannot have thought that this dynamic was going to work well. She's kind of like, hey guys, like, please don't do that. Like, it's like,
What are you
I know.
supposed to do? Like what would be the effective way to redirect these two?
I don't
Well,
know,
look,
but that person did not have it.
Yeah.
no, and in fact was just like, yeah, go ahead. Like it just was not a good idea. And if Ellie's gonna go out and do this, just have her be under Tommy or somebody who's gonna have a little bit of understanding about her and what she's capable of. I just think that this was, to me annoying just in how quickly the captain stood down. Um they do make a point of saying, "Oh, you like," because Tommy said this to her before when they were out, that she was going to have to pay attention and follow orders of whoever the captain was, and makes that point very clear. And it's clear she and Gina are not going to do that. So,
It's also
um,
weird that Kat is her ex-girlfriend, which
Oh, is that true?
which they
I didn't
talk
get
about
that.
that on the road. I mean, Dina, so yeah, Dina's asking her if she's going to the dance, and she's like, I don't know. Are you going with somebody? No. You could go with Kat's available. You could go with Kat. Why would you ask me that? Because she's the other one, saying that they're the only two lesbians in all of Jackson, apparently.
hmm,
Yeah, that I don't think I clocked
I don't
that, or
think
I
I thought
didn't put
that
those
either.
people together. Yeah.
Okay, well maybe I feel like yeah. All right. Well, I was definitely connecting dots there, but the other than a couple of like resentful looks, maybe Kat does not seem to put out much in the way of like jilted ex-lover energy toward Ellie. So it's easy to I guess to not pick that up. Kat is constantly wanting to go home too. Like as soon as they even see any blood on the road, she's like, "All right, we should go back." But yeah, too late. Dina and Ellie are racing toward the end of the blood trail, which is a bear surrounded by several dead clickers and runners.
In the world of Last of Us, cordyceps does not infect animals, right?
We haven't seen it do that. No.
We haven't seen it.
There's no possibility of zombie bear because that's what I where I thought this was going for a moment, and I was like, that would be so scary.
It would be very bad, but this is why, we have giraffe safety in Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Although
Okay.
we didn't see much in the way of zombies in Salt Lake. It was mostly just the Fireflies and Joel and Ellie by themselves,
Yep.
just having a good, quiet time.
It doesn't really make sense. You would think that if the cordyceps is the intelligence, it wouldn't need an intelligent creature to inhabit, but I'm willing to go for it just because otherwise the forces arrayed against these people would be overwhelming and they
Yeah,
would have no meat to eat.
yeah. Um, so they make the reckless decision to go inside the grocery store to just, basically close the loop, get rid of the dangerous creatures that were left over from this bear fight. Um, and they tell Kat that maybe there's a toddler in there, maybe there's a baby. It's funny to listen to them yelling this over their shoulders as they run toward the grocery store.
I know. And this did feel very video game to me, even how they're like standing outside and then once they go in. I
Yeah.
did like how Dina puts a check on Ellie because Ellie's like, "Oh, there's only one," and whatever, and then they pause and Dina's like, "No," and they have all these like hand signals and whatever that seem to be
The
very
hand
funny.
signals
Like,
was
oh, give me
amazing.
it was like, all right, that's pretty good. Like they've got the beer bottle, they've got all the setup. So I do like their communication in this, and this did feel very much like, they're going through like the set of a video game. Just is that something, Stuart, that was because this felt like it might have been yanked directly from it, or at least that's how it read to me.
Yeah.
Um,
This is
yeah.
fully a section in the game, and it plays out quite similarly. I don't remember if there's a fall through the floor, but I feel like I was constantly falling through the floor in that game, so it definitely could have happened. Um, there's there's any of these scenes, there's way more zombies in the game than there are in the show, but it was enough of a threat. Also, the dog as the employee of the month was a thing in the game, like, and it even had like a safe combination on its collar or something, or maybe it was the month and year that it was the employee of the month was a safe combination because you're constantly trying to break into safes
Hmm.
and get those supplies throughout the game. But yeah, and so Ellie's like, "Oh, you got to come and see this employee of the month" when she falls to the floor.
Yep. And I liked how that all like when I also liked how um the lighting again, and it's just the whole idea that she's down there alone and now has to contend by herself. Is this particular, I don't know, what is this thing called? This is not a clicker.
That's a stalker.
It's
It's a
just a
new.
stalker.
There's
It's
a
a new
few
one.
different versions of the fungi zombies that show up in this in the game, and stalkers are one of them. And stalkers are legit hard to fight because they are quiet and they will flank you. This one is not acting like the stalkers as much, although that little peek around the corner is very stalker behavior that you get in the game. But this one's a little louder, I would say.
It looks so scary though when you first get the full view of it. So I was liking the makeup and stuff with this one.
The scene where this, like the entire part in the ground floor or whatever of the grocery store, the way that the stalkers reveal is so good where Ellie, the camera's kind of following Ellie and then she just like slightly outpaces it and it kind of lags behind her for a moment and then you just see the stalker crawl through like on the very edge of the frame and it just really made me marvel. I know that we talked about this last season, but Craig Mazin directed this episode and directed the opening episode of season one as well. And besides those two, the only thing he's ever directed before is superhero movie. And we talked about his bizarre evolution from writer of apparent of all these like scary movies, superhero movie style, um, you know, parodies to being this incredibly respected wordsmith and show creator and stuff. But I also think it's amazing that he has the visual and kind of directorial acuity that he has for this kind of stuff, given that that's really not where he came from at all. And so I was just really impressed with the way that this was shot and the way that the the stalker is revealed in this kind of like piecemeal way until you finally get the full view of it. I just thought the whole scene was very, very, very effective and scary.
Yeah.
I
They
I agree, and I really I this was a very creepy scene, and I thought they did a really good job at building the suspense and building the build up to this was really great. So very he definitely executed this incredibly well. So does he do the direction, or is he just the writer in Mythic Quest? I mean,
he
that's
just the writer.
just the writer, and
Yeah.
Chernobyl too, right? Yeah.
Correct. Kyle's right. He's directed the specials also, which was I don't even know what the
No,
hell
I
I'm
don't know.
looking
I
at.
don't know what that is.
Rob Lowe, Jamie Kennedy, Thomas Hayden Church from 2000. He directed that and superhero movie. So two superhero movies, basically, two spoof superhero movies, and then Last of Us are his three directorial credits.
And he didn't even direct that many episodes last season, just the first one. Just kind of
But
kind of
yeah,
unbelievable.
I feel like it's kind of a it's a I also clocked the way that they showed her in several like every time she crossed an aisle, I think feel like it happened three times. You would see the stalker in the fuzzy background. And I love this as a don't show the monster too much. But then when they eventually do, oh, they knock it out of the park with creature effects, with the
Mhm.
stuff coming out of her nose and the crazy scratches on her face. Yeah, Stalker was it was a good interaction. And HA, I'm sure that you were like yelling or something at your screen when you saw where Ellie got bit.
Yes. Yes. How did you know?
Because torso bites, we've always bemoaned as like this, oh, of course Carl gets bitten on the torso and other people
Well,
get
at least in this particular sense, it's like at least they make it believable that she actually got bitten instead of it being like, how did that thing even bite that person? Oh, and suddenly they have a torso bite.
yeah.
But yeah, agree. And it also, I will say, maybe this is part of the buildup that they did when she was doing the fighting scene before, because he was saying that they were pulling their punches and she wasn't as strong, like quite as strong as she thought she was, and she maybe overestimates her ability to get out of these situations, and that might be what they were going for here. But I found it very annoying that she just couldn't get this thing off of her, and I know that the stalker's really strong and she was caught off guard and it was incredibly creepy how it was doing this, but I was annoyed that she got bit where she did and that it managed to get through like 5 layers of clothing to do so. So yeah, I was screaming in annoyance at this, so much so that my significant other was like, what are you watching?
Yeah.
I have to say
Anyway.
that if I'm running this settlement, then if you have any kind of zombie interaction. Like if you are in a place where a zombie is close to you, you're getting a full body check on your way back in. And so I'm kind of like, really? Like they just let her wander back in after she had a basically mano a mano fight with two different zombies. They're just gonna let her walk back into this settlement without even taking a look. I guess it just speaks to the like kind of you know, um casual approach they're taking to the zombies these days in Jackson, but it just seems like, you would have to strip and show off your your torso to make sure that you don't have a giant bite on your, belly.
That's a fair
Yeah, and
point. If it, I
also,
mean, she's lucky in that the wound was kind of superficial, although they do have that beautiful also special effects shot of a little squirmy wormy
Hmm.
going into it.
I also was just like, wouldn't they have some kind of protective something that they're wearing when they're going out, and maybe they don't have the availability of it. But if you know that the bites are such a thing, like we've seen this in other shows, where they do have some kind of protection, some, I don't want to say armor, but I don't know, maybe some shark biting equipment or something, like something to anti-shark bite, something if you're going to go out on patrol, you want to be protected against these things. But I don't know. It is what it is. They did it, and now we have to deal with it. But I also agree. Like, I would think that just if anybody had an interaction with something, that there would be just the danger of the infection would be so much that they would have like protocol for examining everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I like,
Including those people riding in on the wagon.
oh, definitely, definitely. Anybody coming into their community, they've got to be, to me, annoyingly careful about it. So, I was really surprised that I actually thought Dina was going to ask a few more questions after they were, interacting with each other down there.
Yeah,
Um,
especially when she comes on the scene and it's basically like, that's it? Like, why are you on the floor almost? Like why does it look like you've had a hard time with this? Just
mhm.
that one? So Dina should be a little more curious about what just happened. They, however, just kind of cut to a tribunal scene or like Dina and they're at least getting debriefed, but by like the city leadership, which seems a little bit funny. I feel like it would be Jesse and Tommy or something as a ad hoc. But they are basically like, yeah, so the zombies are changing. This one didn't act like the others. Maria gets to share how she's had some premonitions. She has a bad feeling. Another lady on the council quotes, did she quote Lily Tomlin?
Yes, she did.
And and then they're like, oh, it's New Year's Eve. Let's go party.
Hmm.
Yeah, so now we're gonna, well, we're not quite at the party yet because Ellie is cutting herself to hide the fact that she's been bitten again. She's like making it into a wishbone sort of shape. And and then Joel comes to visit her while she's writing in her journal about basically how she's got a crush on Dina because Dina made a funny joke about barbecue.
I have not been a teenage girl, but to me, that diary looked pretty teenage girl accurate
Yeah,
in
pretty
terms of
close.
like, everything's kind of all crammed in there. There's little sketches and things. She's writing the same thing over and over again. I like the little details there.
And in the game, the her journal is it's a thing that you can like check out as like kind of a bonus element of the video game. You can look at pictures she's drawn of places and people, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, she's apparently a really good artist. Joel comes to visit her, and again, like more just Joel being inept as a human, is unable to speak with her, and instead sees her guitar, looks at it for half a second, and then like runs away with it to go fix it. And she's almost like, "Wait, okay." Um, like they were so close to having a conversation. You could,
So close, yet so far away.
yeah,
And so she has cut open the bite and like sewn it together or something. Like she's made
yeah,
it into more of like a, just a wound rather than a bite mark.
yeah. I think she
Is
Yeah.
that
cuts it to be like a Y shape so that it doesn't look just like the U of a bite.
okay?
Yeah, it
Got it.
looks more like, somehow she got slashed-ish or something. So,
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of weird given where it is on her. Okay, again with the torso bite, it's only one, it's like one side of the mouth. It's like the top or the bottom without the other side, and it's in the middle of her stomach. So
I know.
where was the other side of the mouth? Was it stuck? Maybe it
Yes.
was stuck on something else. But I also feel like the very two front teeth would be much deeper than any of the others. You wouldn't have that like perfect U shape
Nope.
without both sides of the mouth coming together, I feel like. But
Well, and
I'm not
also
a yeah.
she was also struggling. The fact that this even again, well,
Yeah.
I can't even.
Well,
Anyway,
I'm
let's
sure that there's a forensic bitologist who would be able to cut this up, but
yeah.
Um, Joel has done his visit and then runs away. Ellie goes to the dance. This is a sequence that plays out almost 100% as it is in the game. It is a cut scene in the game, though, well, as were some of those other ones that they did, seen, moment for moment. The dialogue, I think the music, I think it's the band who played the music or the band who are on the stage in the TV show and the game, same. It's and Dina's wearing like an outfit that is very, very, very close to what she's wearing in the game. It's fascinating to watch all this.
That's funny because this is just about the least video gamey
scene.
sequence in this episode. And so it's funny that this is what's ripped straight from the video game because like we were saying earlier, the grocery store, that feels like a video game level, even the way that like you move from one section to another and you're separated from your companion and all that kind of stuff. But this doesn't feel like a video game at all. So
Mm,
just kind of speaks to how unusual The Last of Us is as a video game series, I think.
true. Nothing
All
else
right.
on the dance scene?
Well, I mean, you
No,
just go you just go from you just go from this moment of like such happiness for Ellie and kind of being caught up in her giddiness to then so devastatingly sad for Joel. That's like the
yeah.
roller coaster of emotions that you're on in this scene where he just can't figure out how to be anything other than what he is, and it's emblematic of the rift between them and the lie that their whole relationship is now resting on. It's just a really the 1-2 punch of those two things that you feel back to back is really super well executed here, and must have been well executed in the game too.
Yeah. And also feel Ellie's happiness, but then there's also the tension. There's definitely some tension in the community, and Joel just kind of can't be anything but the protective person, but he's not. She doesn't want him to be that, and it's devastating. His face, like the his expression is just so it's really painful to see it. And really definitely really well done. Um and I just think, you know, we're gonna see a little bit more of the tension in the community with Ellie because there clearly is some are just like that slight, um, not even slight, like the the remark that this was a church event and it just everything just goes off the rails. So you go from that immediate like pinnacle of happiness for Ellie at least, although she's still, there's probably um you know, she's happy, but I don't know that she expected like it's like a surprised happiness because I don't know that she expected that her feelings might be reciprocated. And so
Hmm.
that I don't know, the contrast there, I agree, Kyle, is really it's really well done. But I feel like you're going to see a little bit more of these themes as we get into what happens in the rest of the season. What about you, Stuart?
I'm curious to see how the Seth thing continues. I don't think that we're done with that little piece of the story.
Nope.
It's not a huge part of the game. But this dance scene actually plays out as a flashback in the game. But you hear about it a lot, and that's some of the first scenes you have. You've probably seen or heard some of this, Kyle, as you were getting to that snowball fight. There's like discussion about what happened at the dance last night.
Hmm.
Um, and there's actions the following day that Maria takes as like a response to how that went at the party. And people are talking about how Joel kicked Seth's ass and Ellie yelled at him.
Hmm.
So I'm interested to see if we get to the following day and what's going on. But what I have no idea how it's going to play out is people are enjoying, celebrating New Year's Eve, and we got fungus tendrils in the pipes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got fungus pipes going on here. And we also see that Ellie is just gonna like ignore, like they were so close to having that conversation before the dance. Now she's not talking to him, um, and walking past him. But fungus pipes clearly is going to be an issue. I'm not sure. Like, I feel like in season one, they had the mycelia alert zombies to where people were. I think that might be what they're trying to tell us here,
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
opposed to
because
like somebody getting grabbed by those little tendrils and turned into a zombie. I mean,
Oh no, I think they're like kind of report tendrils or whatever.
report tendrils. Yes.
I also want to say there is that tension that you have between Joel and Ellie, and at least I felt this. There's this like desire to have those two make up so much, like it's almost overwhelming. And so, this is that you want that conflict resolved, and obviously I think it's gonna be worse and continue on. But that even that moment between them when she's about to go into the garage and he's just playing the guitar on the porch, you feel like, oh, there's an opening for them to do this, and then they don't do it. And again, the Pedro Pascal doesn't actually have like a ton of dialogue in this episode compared to others, but he's doing a lot of really great acting, nonverbal acting despite that. So
Yeah.
um and
The
then
and the things he does say are dumb. Like that's
yeah,
what I like about it.
yeah,
Like, Joel, don't be such a meathead,
I
man.
know, I know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then we obviously with the little alert zombie like fungus, we'll see probably more of that. But then we have the fireflies, and I do like this that they're like I at first expected them to be really a lot closer to the community, but they're just seeing the lights out there in the distance, but they're close enough to see them. So that's kind of like I don't know. There's a lot of tension related to that.
Yeah, and this
But
checks out. I kind of wish that they'd had a chance to have a little bit of a conversation, like they do at the in the beginning of the game when they get to this point. But they're about as far out because they look at the lights and they go, "Oh wow, that's much bigger than we thought it was going to be." I think is kind of the vibe you get. But here they don't say anything. They just kind of have their steely looks.
Oh, I also want to put like the thing that Abby says at the beginning, which we didn't talk about, is she makes this like really snide remark about Joel being good looking, which I thought was pretty funny. Um,
that was one of the things that rang the most, that grated on me the most about that opening. Was that they say he's handsome? I guess if you're into that sort of thing, I was just like, that seems like something that like Pedro Pascal's like agent had inserted into into
I thought so.
the
I kind of thought that she was being very annoyed because they really don't have that much to go on,
yeah.
other than the fact that he's tall. Like, and she's just like, how are we supposed to figure out where he is? We just have this incredibly vague description, and she seems annoyed by it. But agree, I was like, did Pedro Pascal write that line? He might. We know that he follows his fan Instagram things apparently. So, um, anyway, what did you think about the ending scene, Kyle?
uh, I like that. I kind of like that it took 5 years for them to figure out where they are and to go find him. You know, it's uh, kind of a trope or like a lazy form of writing for the villains to just kind of show up wherever the people they're hunting happen to be. And it does make sense that in this fragmentary world where you just have, these very like tenuous supply lines between things and stuff, it would have taken that long for word to get back, through people to Seattle that, hey, there's this guy named Joel who's running everything over in Jackson now, and he's asking for a circuit breaker springs.
Hmm.
So I kind of liked that the idea that the revenge that's animating those folks is so strong that years after the massacre, they're still kind of on the hunt and together as a band looking for him.
Yeah, could be trouble. Could be trouble in Jackson. We'll have to watch the next episode to find out.
Coming up tonight, I think. So,
Yeah. Well, exciting times. I mean, I've watched this episode a couple of times. I feel like I could watch it a couple more. I'm pumped that it's back. I can't wait to talk through the next. How many episodes are there going to be? Several.
Eight
I
or
think
ten, probably, right?
I think there's 9 in the season. No.
I think 7 is what it's
Oh,
gonna.
7? Oh,
What a
good.
weird number. Last season it was 9, and this season
Oh,
is 7. So maybe they did another one of those things where they combined two together. I don't know. Um,
This one felt a little long. This one I think was over an hour, so you can't
yeah,
count on in the days of streaming, you can't really count on a strict 52 minutes or whatever like it used to be. So
especially not with an HBO Max original premiere prestige show. That was just a jibe at you, Kyle. Sorry.
I'm
I know.
still
I'm.
they've collapsed it so much now that there's almost no meaning. There was
It's
an ad.
meaningless. Yeah.
There was an ad that ran at the beginning, and it was advertising this and Peacemaker, which is a Max original, and stuff from like Hulu or something. I was just like, you've taken the HBO brand and just like ground it into dust and mixed it with all the other dust. It's just so stupid.
Well, but this is good dust. So we're gonna
That's true.
come back again and keep reviewing. The next episode's called Through the Valley. Got a new director, but same writer, Craig Mazin. Actually, Craig writes every single episode. Sometimes he gets help,
hmm.
but he is a solo writer for the first 5 episodes. And then we just have a different director for each one. And so that's airing, yeah, 420 today. Should we come back and do it again next time?
We shall. And thank you both for humoring me and meeting up today. So
Thank you for having me and letting me rant. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I'm
I
always
can't
here for an electrical engineering rant.
I want to hear more rants because I'm sure there will be more to rant about as we continue the season. I'm gonna allow it.
Okay. Well, if anybody else wants to rant about anything or just, gush, go ahead and email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can find the rest of our episodes online on Podbean at reanimated.podbean.com. And we'll talk to you all soon. So toodaloo.
Ciao.
Adios.